say the game is getting old. Monday morning and your coffee's cold. Life is not what you want it to be. You need another chance to be.
Hey everyone, welcome to A New Direction. My name is Jay Izzo, and oh man, do we have a great show. I am telling you, I know, Jay, every week it's a great show. It is, but today, special. Royce Gomez, author of Level Up. If you have any desire at all to have any interest in leadership or success, or maybe you don't care about leadership and success. Maybe that doesn't mean anything to you. Maybe you're one of those people who go, you know, Jay, I don't really want to be a leader and I don't want to be successful. Well, then this is probably not the show for you. But if you have any inkling at all that maybe you want to go be a better leader or you want to be more successful, then this is the show for you. Because her name is Royce Gomez. This book is absolutely awesome. It's practical. It's fun. It's a fun, fast, practical read. That's the best way you can do it. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to put that on the Amazon review. It is a fast, fun, practical leadership success read. What do you think of that? What do you think of that for a title, Royce? Do you like that for my title for my 5-star review on Amazon?
I absolutely love it. I think that summarizes it very well.
I love that. See, that's her voice right there. We're going to talk to her in just a second because, you know, she's going to be awesome and she's so much fun and she has been so gracious. The story, if I could tell you the story of how she is just like helped a guy out, oh man, I'm telling you what, she took this big, huge guy and just was like, I'm going to help you out. And that's what she did. She lifted me up out of the water. I was drowning. She lifted me up. So it was really pretty good. She's strong. That tells you how strong she is. Okay, but let's do what we do every week, right? Let's check in with you and find out how you're doing in the 4 areas of your life. You know, I believe that we are 4-part people. We are physical people, we are mental people, we're emotional people, and we're spiritual people, right? And these things are, all 4 things are independent of each other, right? I mean, they do affect each other, but you can't like take the average and say, oh, well, that's where I'm at. No. Your physical is, you know, very different than your mental, than your emotional, than your spiritual, right? So look at these independently because we got to work on each of these independently, not all as one thing. So let's start with the physical. Scale of 1 to 10. 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding. People out there listening all over this world. Thank you, Facebook, Castbox FM, The Oak, 93.5 in Raleigh, and all the podcasts everywhere. So where are you at physically on that scale of 1 to 10? 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, 5 being average, right? Are you a 3, 6?
Oh, Jay.
What are you today?
You're making me confess right up front, aren't you?
But you don't have to.
I think I'm an 8. Even with all the hiking I've done this summer, my jeans are still a tad snug.
So you're here. I love it when guests get involved like this, right? So she's an 8. She's an 8. Even though she's not where she wants to be, she's an 8. She feels good, right? You feel good? Is that correct, Royce?
Yep.
Yeah, you feel great?
Yep.
And, you know, here's the thing, and Royce will tell you this because of her book, Level Up. She would tell you that, you know what, the goal, whatever your number is, you don't have to be an 8 like Royce. You know, you could be a 3. The goal here is not to get from a 3 to a 10. We want you to get from a 3 to a 4, right? We just want you to get to the next number. So think about this. What do you need to do to change you to get to that next number? And here's what we know. The higher the numbers get, well, now you got to start looking at a half number or a quarter number because the closer you get to 10, the harder it tries to get there, right? So then all of a sudden those gaps become narrower. So asking you, everybody out there, what are you doing out there? What are you doing to change what you need to change physically, okay? And it could be a variety of things, right? Maybe you need to do a little hiking. Like you heard Royce, she did some hiking. Maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe add that into you. Maybe it's a change of diet. It could be a number of things, right? Maybe it could be getting a flu shot. Think about that. Okay. All right. Secondly, mentally, right? Okay. Mental area. What do I mean by that? Well, there's 2 halves of our brain, right? There's a right side of our brain that's creative and fun. And Royce and I know all about that creative side because, you know, we're authors and we write and we love that. But then there's the left side of the brain, which is the logical side. And, you know, we can be pretty good at that too because, you know, we have to think numbers and business and how that all logic and the logistics of all of it. And right. And that's 2 halves of the brain. And so what are you feeding yourself? What kind of knowledge are you feeding yourself mentally in those 2 halves of your brain? And then evaluate that on that same scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding. Where are you at mentally today? Royce, what do you got? What are you at mentally today? If you're thinking about it, in feeding both.
Oh, gosh. I have 2 numbers for this, Jay. You know, with multiple brain injuries, sometimes I feel like I'm at a 6 because I forget what I'm going to say, and hopefully that won't happen during this interview. but I am a continuous avid learner and take in everything I can take in and try out new things. So in that manner, I would say I'm a 10 because I'm up for a challenge every time mentally.
Okay, did you hear what she said? She's an avid, right? She's an avid learner. See, here's the thing about people who are avid learners. They're always feeding both halves of the brain. They're feeding the creative side. They're feeding the logical side. That's what we're asking you to do, right? What are you doing? Are you learning? Are you really growing and learning? Because you know what? As my wife has told me since day one when we started dating, you know what she said to me? She said, you know what? If you're not growing, you're dying. That is not something you want to hear on a date, but it is nonetheless true. You know, but
your wife's a wise woman.
She certainly is, and so you know, I tell people all the time, you know, when you constantly in a state of learning, you're always growing. All right, so we got two numbers, a physical number and a mental number. Well, let's move on to the emotional number. What do I mean by that? Well, sometimes you'll hear us, psychological professionals like myself, you'll hear us use words like emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. What we're really talking about, if I can make it a gross generalization, is we're talking about how well are you able to control your emotions first, right? And then the second piece is how well are you able to tap into the emotions of others? And then there is a third piece, how well do you understand your own emotions? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being miserable, 10 being outstanding, how well are you doing in those three areas? Being able to control your emotions, being able to emote or relate to the emotions of others, and then being able to really understand your emotions and where they come from. Royce, what do you got?
You know, as a leader, I think you have to be honest with that question and say there's always room for improvement. So I'm going to go with a 7.5 because I think there's always room to tap into others' emotions and walk where they've walked.
I love that, right? We call it empathy, right? Where we can walk in someone else's shoes, and we're not saying sympathy. Don't get those two things confused. Sometimes people actually do. I'm not feeling sorry for you. I'm just trying to get into your shoes and feel what you feel as you walk in them, and that's what Royce is talking about. So how well are you doing with all that, folks? How well are you? Are you? What's that number? And then what do you need to change to get to that next number? All right. Finally, it's the last number, right? It's the spiritual number. And I always get people who say, I don't know what you mean spiritually, Jay. Well, here's what I'm talking about. First of all, science cannot explain everything. Okay, I know some of you out there want to believe that. Well, it's just because they can't explain it now. Trust me, we are not going to be explaining it. I have my master's portion of my degrees has an S at the end. So I did nothing but study science. I'm just going to tell you right now. There is parts that we will never explain because there is actually some sort of a side. There's a soul. We have a soul. There's sometimes music touches a part of us we can't explain. It's not physiological. It's not. There's nothing to explain it. There's something there, and we can't even explain love why we love something that we never loved before. Right? I have a friend who's going to have a baby here in a couple weeks. And he said, you know, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it. And I said, wait till you see her, because all of a sudden you will love something you've never loved before. And you know, spiritual things can come in a variety of forms. You know, some people believe in God, some people believe that nature gives them a center, or some people believe in, you know, karma or other things. They believe that somehow that gives them a center or a peace or a joy. And so I always ask this question on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing in that area of your life? Because is it working for you where you can go to your spiritual area, maybe it's meditation or prayer, and that you know that it's working for you? And that, you know, maybe it's a relationship. If it's a relationship with God, how's that working out for you? So on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing? Royce, how are you doing in the spiritual area?
I'd say a 9, Jay.
That's awesome. See, folks, it doesn't have to be this religious ceremony. It's not that at all. What it is it's really about, the spiritual area is really about what does it take to bring you back to center? And that gives you a sense of calm, a sense of peace, and a sense of joy that we can't explain. So you've got the 4 areas of your life, the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual. And you got to think of those of like sitting in a chair. You know, if they're uneven, it's really uncomfortable sitting in a chair, right? And if they're too low, it's really uncomfortable to sit in the chair. And if you're too low and they're uneven, it's even more uncomfortable. So the whole idea of bringing these 4 areas up is so that we can bring the chair up to the right height, right, which is a 10. Bring it up to our 10, right, to our right height. So what we could do is we could sit in a chair and be well balanced. Well, that leads me to somebody who's extraordinarily well balanced, and as you heard from her, and thank you so much for joining me with that, Royce. Her name is Royce Gomez, and she is extraordinary. She is the owner of Royce Talks and RoyceTalks.com. She's a business consultant, executive coach, CEO of Royce Talks, and by the way, it's ROYCE Talks, TALKS.com. And she's been doing this for years and years. She's a copywriter, a published author, an editor, an independent consultant. She is a radio podcast host of Thrive, A Woman's Journey to Victory, that features interviews. And ladies, she's written a series of books. And I shouldn't say that they're serious, but she's written so many books that they're just one after another. She's co-written books. She's helped nonprofits. She's helped startups. She's helped write letters. She's published probably over 100,000 different pieces of written material from all over the place. She has done everything imaginable when it comes to being able to help people get to where they want to be, because she is the woman, she's the person, she is the person who can help you get there. And her name is Royce Gomez. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Royce Gomez. Royce, welcome to A New Direction.
Thank you. I hope I can live up to all that and let you know it did not happen without some challenges.
Well, I love this book as I'm holding it up and as people are joining us from all over the world here. Level Up is the name of the book, and it's Visioning Your Leadership DNA, and available on Amazon. And certainly you can, if you have a local bookstore, ask them to bring it in. They can get it for a local bookstore as well. Your local bookstore as well. It's called Envisioning Your Leadership DNA. I love this book for a variety of reasons, but one of the things that I love about a great leadership success book is when the author challenges me in a very subtle way. And you did that immediately out of the gate with this book. And you call them secrets. We could call them chapters, but you call them secrets. And then you say at the end of the book, and I'm sorry, spoiler alert, everybody, if you don't want to hear the spoiler alert at the end of the book, let me tell you spoiler alert. She'll say, well, they're really not really secrets. Okay, that's what she says at the end of the book. But the very first thing she says in the book, and this was such a challenge to me, was dream big. And I thought when I read that, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, dream big. But then I'll tell you what challenged me in what you said, and I want you to talk about after I say this. I don't think I dream big enough, and I think that I personally don't think. I think I'm also can have a tendency that I don't keep dreaming bigger, right? As I get older, sometimes I think I'm limiting my dreams. I'm not thinking big enough. Do you find that in your history and people that you've worked with, do you find that that's also commonly true?
No, I think that we dream less as we grow older because we see less value in material things, and we've acquired a lot more than when we're 25 and starting out. At 25, the money is everything, and at 50, it no longer is, and we seem to equate money with dreaming bigger, and that's not necessarily a fair equation. So dreaming big can have so much more to do with things other than money, and although I've said that money is not everything, we seem to have a wrong mindset around money and think it's bad. And recently I sat in front of a person who read my resume, as you did as we opened the show, and she says, so why aren't you making $50,000 a month in your business? With a resume like that, you should be.
Right.
And I said, you're absolutely right. It's just never been a goal. That's why.
Right.
So you can take dreaming big in terms of a money equation, and you can take it in terms of impact and serving others and accumulating experiences. Travel to me is about experiences and not what I spend or what I see, but who I get to know. So I think that we just have a wrong equation around that.
So let's talk about this, because I think this is really important. We get caught up when it comes to leadership and success. Sometimes we do focus on the dollar sign, but success and being a great leader does not always necessarily equate with a dollar sign, does it?
Exactly.
And
No.
so then what happens is we evaluate people's success from the outside by, and this is the danger, right? Because then all of a sudden the danger is we evaluate people by what they drive, where they live, what they wear, versus who they are. And that's a huge danger, I think. Do you not agree with that?
Oh, I totally agree with that. When I was in college, I worked for a major retailer who I won't name, but they have an excellent training program at that time. And it was a luxury retailer. And they said never judge someone by the way they come in, because they could be in bib overalls or Nike
Right.
shorts and spend more than the guy with the Rolex on his wrist. So I was taught that very early on, and know that you cannot judge people by what they have or even their title,
Right.
but by who they are as a person.
Yeah, I am so in agreement with that. But this is the piece of the Dreaming Big chapter, though, that challenged me, was because, you make a point here. We don't dream big enough, and when we do dream, we're not even sure what we're really dreaming of. And you're very careful here to make sure that you don't just say dream wildly. You're like, look at you talk about looking at your personality, your natural talents, your gifting, your passion. You could be 55 and you could dream of being a professional basketball player. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. That's not what you're talking about here. You're talking about, you're talking about, really taking a look at what you've been given, and then how do you utilize that in terms of what do you dream, because that's what's going to make you the most fulfilled, right?
Absolutely.
So
couldn't have said it better.
So talk about that a little bit more, and why dreaming is such a big deal, how we go about doing it, and then why, and then how do you encourage people to get beyond that sticking point of I don't even know what I want to do. How do you get them to do that?
Yeah, I'll give you a specific example using travel, which is one of my favorite hobbies. And, when I was in high school and visited the guidance counselor, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I grew up in a small town, so we had very limited, we had blinders on as to what was available in the world. And so I said, I want to travel. And so she said, well, go into the fashion industry. You have a modeling background, and you can be a buyer and travel to New York and Paris. And you and I spoke of Italy before we went live, and,
Right.
She hit my hot button. So that's what I wanted to do, I thought. Well, 4 years ago, I had the chance to travel for 31 weeks as a digital nomad building my business, and that's the kind of travel I meant, was the freedom to travel and not go to Paris and New York to work, but to go to places where locals live and live as a local and understand their culture and their history and their desires and the way they live. And that, to me, is fulfilling when I think of travel.
Ah, got it. And then, so when you have people who come to you and say to you things like, Royce, I really don't know what I want to do. I don't know what to dream about. I'm not even sure. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I'm working with a client like that right now. She knows what her gift is, but she doesn't know how she wants to translate that gift into a business model. And basically, we go through an exploratory session or a couple of sessions of questions and find out what would light her fire. I don't want to be like that high school counselor where I find out her gift or her desire and then go, okay, let me put you in a box over here because this is what I know. Let's ask enough questions to see how that can play out. Do you want to be in corporate America? Do you want to be an entrepreneur? Do you want to work virtually and never meet your clients? Do you want to be hyper local and shake hands with every client you get? Those are important questions to design a business around the lifestyle that you want to create.
Yeah, I love that, because I think, sometimes what happens is I think we're kind of afraid that we're going to get stuck into something that we're going to hate. But if it's following, what really sparks you, what really excites you, your passion about, and we're going to talk about passion here in a little bit because you talk about that too. But I think when we start doing that, and then we match that up with our natural personality and our natural gifting, and we don't really understand those things, but what we don't understand is because we've never tapped into them, and sometimes we're so afraid of tapping into them, I think, that we're reluctant to jump in. But the fact of the matter is, when you do, you're going to be more fulfilled than you've ever been fulfilled. And
actually this client that I was speaking of is going through that, and I asked, are you wanting to put on the brakes because of fear or because you've figured out a little bit more about the direction you want to take? I think that fear can grip us and hold us back from fulfilling our potential.
And this is why Chapter 2 becomes so important. Or Secret 2. This is why Secret 2 becomes so important, because this is where, that when we struggle with our dream, that it becomes really important that we enroll others into it. See how I did that? That we enroll others. But before you get to that, before we get to enroll, you know what? You're listening to, by the way, I got to do this because we're talking with Royce Gomez, and I just neglected to do that. We're talking with Royce Gomez, author of the book, Level Up, Visioning Your Leadership DNA, available on Amazon, Kindle version, and available at your local bookstore. And you know what? She's right here on A New Direction. And A New Direction is brought to you today by our favorite sponsor, right? The sponsor that's been with us from the very beginning, and that's Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You know what? Inline Business Brokers and Advisors have literally helped thousands of clients in the sales and purchases of businesses. And when it's time to sell your business, contact the professionals at Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. You can learn more by going to Enlign.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. Doesn't matter where you're at in the world, they can help you find the right professional, the right expert to help sell your home or buy your home. And even though they're located in Raleigh, North Carolina, and they are known as the legends of customer service, they can really help people all over the world because they're that well connected. 34 years in the business. It's the reason why. And you should find out the reason why they're called the legends of customer service, because they truly are. And you can learn more about Linda Craft and her team by going to lindacraft.com. That's LINDACRAFT.com. And then finally, let me give a shout out to Stetson hats. I wear my Stetson every week, and I am very grateful for Stetson and your hat, because you know what? Your hats are great, and because of that, you help me look great. And that's a tough thing to do on this body. So I really do appreciate you very much, Stetson, for doing that. And we're back here on A New Direction with Royce Gomez and her book, Level Up. And we're going into secret number 2, enrolling others. So let's talk about why it's so important to enroll others. Give us a few reasons why, Royce, we need to enroll others when it comes to leadership and success.
Ooh, that's a tough question, and I'm not sure I can say a few, but the thing that comes instantly to mind is success is never done alone. Even if you're a solo entrepreneur, you have to enroll others to be successful. And so dreams only come true when we are embracing others and utilizing the gifts, wisdom, and input of others. So that's the first thing that comes to mind.
But I think
however, in that chapter.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think this is where the jumping point is, and you hit exactly what I wanted you to hit, and so I'm really grateful that you did. So
good.
No, because I think what happens is I certainly can, I can get to this point at times in my career where I just feel like I got to go it alone. I'm not going to help. I'm not going to ask for help, and I'm just going to go it alone, and it never works. By the way, it never works. The fact of the matter is, every piece of success that I've ever had, whether it's podcasting, coaching, writing a book, speaking around the world, whatever it is, none of it comes without other people. And the other side of that is that I know that it's also part of my purpose on this earth to help other people. So it seems to me that it's a two-way street, that you not only enroll others as part of your success, but then you get enrolled in others' success. And to me, that's the jumping point for that chapter.
Oh, absolutely. I had an intern that was with me in 2015, I think, and I loved her work ethic and her willingness to learn and provide input to the team so much that she is still with me today as an employee that I pay. And, I had the chance to pour into training her and teaching her to develop her skills. And today I get the reward of that because she works for me. And so I think it is a two-way street. I've had people pour in and mentor me, and then I've given back and mentored others. And I love our next generation.
Okay, it's not something you wrote about in this book, but I do too. I actually do like the next generation. I've had to, reading so much about the younger generation that's coming up, I have to be honest with you. I first had a really bad view of them. I really did, and I apologize up front for that. But the more I dig into them, and the more I understand them, and the more I get where they're coming from and how they were raised and what's going on, the more I go, you know what? Actually, they're exactly what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it because that wasn't the era I grew up in. And so I'm right with you. I just think the younger generation is I've heard them called the Y generation, that WHY, because they want to know why. That's what I've heard them called, and I love that because they just want to know why. Why do we do this? They question everything, and I love that about them because I'm the same way. I'm curious, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that curiosity. Okay, we're way off topic, but I do love that you brought that up. The third secret that you talk about is believing in yourself, right? Why is believing in ourselves? Is it something that we automatically do, or is it not so automatic? And why is it so important?
I can't get the statistics absolutely correct, but what I can say is when a baby is born, they're afraid of two things: falling and loud noises. By the time they're 5, they're afraid of so much more because they've heard the word no thousands of times. Somewhere between 5 and 13, we shape our view of the world and our belief system. And those views of the world absolutely limit us and what we think that we're capable of. So that by the time we're in high school, we say things like, oh, I can't try out for the basketball team. I'm not one of the best in the school. Oh, I can't try out for the track team. I'm overweight. Oh, I can't try out for debate club because I can't speak in public. And we become adults, and our biggest fear over the fear of dying is speaking in public. Yet when we were babies to 3, we could talk to anybody.
Right.
So believing in ourselves is shaped mainly between the ages of 5 and 13, and it is so wrong. If I could go back and reparent my now adult children, I would totally open the world to them and let them figure out what they're capable of, because we unintentionally hold them back because we have a limited belief system.
And I agree with you. And I'm in total agreement with this because we get limited and we start learning some things erroneously, or because our parents feel like they're trying to protect us, and I'm not blaming my parents. So don't hear that.
Nope.
They were doing the best that they could do under the circumstances. They were just trying to protect us. But in so doing, sometimes inadvertently, what happened is all of a sudden we started getting fear, right? Don't do that. Don't do that this way. Don't. Right? And then all of a sudden you hear don't. And the next thing you know, you're not doing it anymore. And so here we are as adults, and we've heard the message, don't do that because that's going to bring shame, or it's going to bring embarrassment, and all the shame and embarrassment, right? It's just different labels that cover over the top of fear, as we both know. And so what happens is we don't take risk. And I think one of the things that and again, one of the things about believing in yourself is also getting past your own, past your own history enough to say, I got to take the risk. It doesn't matter. And that's why I found your book so challenging, because maybe I'm reading too deep into it, but the more I kept reading it, I kept going, I would read these, and the chapters aren't very long. These aren't like 15-page chapters. Some of these chapters are like 4 or 5 pages, even less sometimes, depending on the chapter. And you read it and you reread it again, and you go, yeah, but do I really believe in who I am? Right? I mean, that's a challenge. I think it's more of a challenge than we want to admit. Would you not agree?
Oh, I think the greater leader that I become, and the more I'm seen as a leader, the more I'm challenged by believing in myself, because our windows expand to what's possible. And so, back in gym class, if your only limited belief was you can't get on the team,
right,
that's very small in comparison to as you grow to be a leader and operate in international business as we do, that you find that your beliefs are even more limiting because the world is opened up to you and literally anything is possible. And yet we're still challenged by those childhood beliefs that say, no, it might not be possible. You might be a little crazy, but look at Disney. Walt Disney created the theme park capital of the world, because people called him crazy. Right. And he had a vision no one else could see. And I think the more we grow as a leader, the more we become like Disney, where a lot more is possible if we could only see it.
It's really interesting. I'm glad you brought Walt Disney up, because I interviewed an author on the show who wrote a book called Entrepreneurship: The Disney Way. And they did all this research. They actually went to Disney and did all this research on Disney and his whole life and interviewed people and everything like that. And, it's really, really interesting, because he was being told over and over and over again he had lost his mind, he was crazy, stop doing this, give it up, right? And there was at one point he even had his original cartoon stolen, right? And thank goodness that it did, because he got his original cartoon stolen by another studio, and because of that, he created Mickey Mouse, right? We don't even remember the name of the previous cartoon that was stolen, because it doesn't even exist anymore. But the fact of the matter is that's that thing about, he believed so much in himself and what was capable and what was possible. And what we're still learning today about Walt Disney is, in fact, that they haven't even been able to tap into everything after he died that he left them to do. They're still working on things. They're still working on things, which it says something about a belief in himself. And we're talking with somebody who believes in herself. And she evidently believes in me, because she's on the show. And her name is Royce Gomez. And the book is entitled Level Up, Visioning Your Leadership DNA. And she has been so gracious to join us here so far here on A New Direction. So let's move along in this book, because there's so much I want to talk about. And I want to move, because I think one of the things about believing in yourself, there is sometimes we can sometimes lose belief in ourselves because we fail. And one of the secrets that you have, secret number 6, is failures help build the pillars of success. So talk to us about failure. Why is failure a good thing, or can it be a good thing? And how can we use failure to our advantage?
Well, I've crashed to the bottom twice in recent years. And the first time was in my real estate investing company. Had about 30 properties, and as you know, in 2008, things crashed and burned. So if you have 30 properties with tenants in them and those people lose their jobs, you now have way too many mortgages. So I crashed and burned that time, and that's where the belief in yourself and being willing to take risk again comes in, that we've already talked about during this conversation. Is getting back up and starting a business again from the ground up. And so I've had to do that because of the economy. And then 5 years ago, I went through a divorce, and for many reasons was left with nothing and started over again. And although I had my consulting business going, it was more of a lifestyle business. It was the vacation fund. It was not a full-time effort. And so I started from the ground up and had to quickly scale, within several months to be able to just pay rent. And that was actually the catalyst to many of the lessons I think that I really solidified and learned on an intimate, deep level in this book, because during that time I decided it was more advantageous to take my business on the road and make connections and expand my circle of influence. And opportunities came up for me that I would have never dreamed possible. I was contributor to a couple of magazines, paid contributor, and got the chance to cover a story on a social enterprise going to Costa Rica. And just some amazing opportunities. And that failure sent me to where I am today. And I am so thankful for it. So you can look at a failure as defeat and treat yourself like a victim, or you can get up and act like a victor and move forward.
I love that, because you said that in your book. That's actually a direct quote from your book, by the way, and people should know.
Is it? I wasn't looking.
Yeah, no, it's a direct quote from the book. You can either fall down and be a victim, or you can get up and be a victor, and it's in our book, and I love that, because here's the thing about failure, and you said this about, and I think many people may have heard this about Thomas Edison, but he failed 1,000 times before he figured out the light bulb. And he treated every failure not as a failure, but that he learned something from each of those experiments that didn't work, that gave him the impetus to figure out what would work. And I think so often, and this is the point, one of the points that you make in chapter 6 about failures helping build pillars, is if we look at those things that we just didn't do well in, and okay, we can call them failures, but the fact of the matter is they're learning incidents. And I love looking them as a learning incident, because they do help. They do, if we will learn from them, and you say this too in the chapter, if you will actually learn from those things, it actually can be the best thing that can happen to you to avoid pitfalls not only in your future, but can actually lead you to the place you should be going anyway.
Absolutely. Yes. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because I think, if you haven't failed, you haven't lived. Okay, first of all, right? I mean, I'm just going to tell you that.
Right.
If you haven't failed, you haven't lived. And if you fail doing the same thing over and over and over again, that's just insanity if you don't change anything. But if you fail trying different things, that means that you're learning something, and that means that you're growing and you're improving, because, folks, I'm sorry. There is no such thing as forever striking out. Okay, I get it. Yes, you could say that could happen, but the fact of the matter is, if you're learning and you continue going on, there is light at the end of that tunnel, and we all need that light at the end of the tunnel. And it's just, that's failure helps do that for us. I think actually gets us closer to the light, because otherwise, if we're not failing, then what happens is, and we just have nothing but success, we get really spoiled, and then we get entitled in that. So I want to talk to you about something kind of personal and some of the lessons you pulled for it. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. This is going to be personal. So little Miss Royce Gomez, who wrote this book, Level Up, decides she is going to take on a new exercise activity. So she decides that she is going to learn to kayak. Is what she decides she's going to do. And so she hunts down a kayak, a good used kayak, because she wasn't sure what she wanted to stand in, sit in. She wasn't sure what she wanted. And so the first thing she does is she finds the kayak, and then I'm going to chastise you for this. You go out for 10 minutes without a life jacket. Okay, stop it. You've never been on a kayak before, so you stop that. Don't ever do that again. But So tell them the story about the kayak experience and some of the lessons that you learned from your lessons from the lake and, becoming a little bit of a kayaker.
I am so glad you brought this chapter up because we did not have this rehearsed, but on LinkedIn today you had a comment from someone, and I said that I would reveal during today's conversation the two favorite chapters, and the kayaking chapter is one of those favorites. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, the kayak, and by the way, you can chastise me, but I was only about 3 feet out from the shore and 5 feet of water. So I had fallen out. I could have stood up and had the fish licking my toes. But
good for you.
But yeah, that was an interesting experience because this goes back to our 5 to 13-year-old self, right? I was the fat kid in school. How'd the fat kid turn into a model? I don't know, but that's who I was as a kid. I was the fat kid, and I was the last picked in gym class. So I was not sure kayaking was for me because I'm not extremely athletic. But it's turned out to be one of my favorite activities, and I have taken those kayaking journeys on the lake to turn them into business stories to teach us about ourselves. And you'll have to repeat the question because I don't think I'm answering it. I forgot.
No. So give us a couple, maybe give us one or two lessons that you learned from the kayak lake, the lessons from the lake and the lessons from the lake lessons continued. Give us just a couple business lessons that you learned as you were out doing what you were doing and how that came about.
Okay. Yeah, the first one is going back to the chapter, believing in yourself. I told you all the reasons why kayaking wouldn't be for me, and my new husband looked at me and said, I think you could cross the lake today. And I said, I don't think so. I've had 15 minutes of YouTube lessons. I need to learn how to row this thing. And I said, my goal is to cross the lake by the end of the summer. Well, by the third time out, I did do it. And he was probably right that I could have done it the first time out with a life jacket on. So, believing in ourselves and not accepting our limitations is so important. And again, I think that simple lesson from kayaking really translates to our business because if we're honest with ourselves, I bet there's something in our business every week that we shortchange ourselves and don't believe we can accomplish. The second lesson I will refer to is there was this big fish in the water. And I lived in Florida for years, never really liked swimming in the ocean because of the things that can bite you. And so this one fish jumped up. I'm out there in the middle, just relaxing, basking in the sun, doing my meditation and prayer and just really in a quiet space. And all of a sudden this fish jumps and I look to my side and he is huge. He's like 4 feet long. And that goes to show you that when we are focused on something, we can lose perspective on other things around us. And I was so focused on my quiet time, which you could look at positively, that you need to meditate and practice gratitude daily, or you can look at it negatively and learn the lesson of business that I was so focused on that I wasn't watching my surroundings. And in business, the reason to have a coach is because you don't see your blind spots. You're not looking at what's around you with the same perspective someone from outside the boat is looking at them. And so that fish wasn't really a shark that was going to eat me or turn my boat over. It was just something in the water. And that fish could be your competitor. It could be an employee. It could be cash flow. And so having a business coach allows us to really take a perspective when we're so myopically focused on the thing that we're doing.
That's beautiful. Her name is Royce Gomez. She's here with us on A New Direction. And A New Direction is brought to you today by none other than Inline Business Brokers and Advisors. Inline, it represents profitable, privately held companies with gross annual revenues in excess of $1 million. They've been with us from the very beginning. They're internationally known. Inline delivers the highest market value in the shortest amount of time with complete confidentiality. That is their registered trademark. You can learn more by going to inline.com. That's ENLIGN.com. And Linda Craft and Team Realtors. They're located in Raleigh, North Carolina, known as the Research Triangle Park, serving Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and the surrounding areas. And the Research Triangle Park, of course, is made up of some of the biggest industries, and they've been at the top of the hill when it comes to real estate, and there's a reason why. For 34 years, they've always been at the top. It's because they have what is known as legendary customer service. And you should find out about why they have legendary customer service and why they've been legends for 34 years, not only in this area, but helping people all over the world. So find out by going to lindacraft.com, and you can do that. It's LINDACRAFT.com. And we thank them for bringing us Royce Gomez and A New Direction. And we are here on A New Direction talking to Royce Gomez, Level Up, Visioning Your Leadership DNA. And we're kind of doing what we do every week. We're kind of walking you through her book little by little. We're not giving you it all. We're giving you the Cliff Notes of the Cliff Notes of the Cliff Notes of the Cliff Notes version is what we're doing. And but we're walking through, and she's really helping you dig into your world and into your life, how you can be more successful, how you can be more savvy, and how you can be a better leader in a variety of different ways. This book is available on Amazon, of course, Kindle version, and also could be available at your local bookstore. And if they don't have it, you can actually ask for it, and they can get it for you immediately, and you can ask them to put it on the shelf. What's a better thing? Matter of fact, what you can even do is you can even go to your library and say, hey, can you get Level Up in my local library? I bet they can do that for you too as well, and have them been put in your library as well. So Royce, let's talk. Okay, so I'm picking and choosing chapters that I loved, right, and that I really. But there were two chapters that you loved, and the one is, of course, Lessons from the Lake. But what's the second chapter that you loved?
Well, I love all of them, but I think the feedback from the readers so far show that Lessons from the Lake is the number one chapter, and then Ask is the second chapter. Because even as leaders, we find that we don't ask. Was that one of your favorites?
I love Ask. I love Ask. I love Leadership is Contagious, and I love Be Positive. But I loved Ask. I really, really did. So talk to us about Ask. And by the way, it's Ask. The chapter is Ask with 2 exclamation points. That's how important it is. Okay, just want to let you know that. So
absolutely is.
Yeah. So talk to us about Ask, the importance of Ask, and what are we really saying there, and then what do we need to do?
Well, I think, again, back to our childhood, we're taught to shut up. If you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. And so think about your meal, a simple thing. The meal gets delivered to your table at the restaurant, and the steak's not cooked the way you like it, or the food is cold, or you have the wrong side that you didn't order. We're afraid to ask. What happens? We just say, oh, gosh, I'll just go ahead and eat it. It doesn't matter.
But it does matter. And deep down, it
does matter.
Deep down, it matters. I know it, because I'm not afraid to say, I'm sorry, but we need to improve this. Yeah, I'm really not afraid to say that. I've never been afraid to hand back a dish in a restaurant. Because, listen, I cook. I cook for my wife and I, because I love doing it. But if it's wrong, I want to know, because I want to know how to fix it. I don't want to because if you don't tell me, I don't know, right? And I think that's part of the piece of Ask. But keep going with that. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but keep going with the Ask, because I think it's just so important.
It is so important, but I find 70% of the people I go eat out with probably won't ask. And so if you think of something that simple, but you cannot be bold enough to ask, what happens when it's something really important, like a raise, or like asking a client to sign the $50,000 contract or whatever? Are you going to be afraid to ask because you think you're not worthy, or it's not time, or the client would say no and you don't want rejection? And I just love one of your sponsors' taglines of legendary customer service. You know, my book got called Level Up because as a business coach today, owning businesses for 25 plus years, I now have 2 business coaches. You know, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, all the greats have multiple coaches, and I find that that's just an integral part of my success. And the book is called Level Up because we want to keep asking ourselves, are we delivering excellence? Can we do better? So the ask is both external, asking others for what you really want, and it's internal, asking ourselves and taking a hard look on, is this the best that I could deliver?
I love that. We're with Royce Gomez, and the book is titled Level Up. Well, you just heard that, right? Visioning Your Leadership DNA, and we're talking about her secret, which she says really isn't much of a secret, but we're talking about her secret called ask, right? And let me just say that we can be very shy about asking, but I think there's a lot of levels to asking, right? I think one of it is it can be fear, but then I think pride can get in the way when it comes to asking, right? Because I don't want to ask for help because I don't, we get pride filled, right? And or we have this expectation that why should I have to ask for business when my business, if you just read it, you'll want to do business with me. But the fact of the matter is, as another guest had told me, he said, you know what the most powerful word in the dictionary is? Ask, right? And you give the point. You made the point that when you were starting your podcast radio show, that you needed to get, you were looking to just fill up the calendar. Well, you started asking people. You did more than fill up your calendar. You started, filling up a month. You started filling up months and months and months and months. All because you asked. Because if we don't ask, nobody knows, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I love that. I love ask. I do. I want to talk about leadership is contagious. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
Why? Talk to us about the contagiousness of leadership.
Well, let's think about when we walk into a room. If you and I had talked about walking into a party and drinking our Italian wine and socializing with people, and you can tell when someone walks into a room that has had a fight with their spouse on the way over, right?
Yes.
You feel the energy.
Yes.
You can tell if someone didn't get a good night's sleep or they're in severe pain from a recent surgery. You just feel the energy. Leadership, I think, is so much the same, that you've had a good boss that just inspires you to be there. You want to be there. You want to do your best. You want to overachieve. You want to serve clients, and you never grumble, and you come in happy and willing to work. And then we've had bosses where maybe, they're always on their case, or always worried about impressing their boss, and they put undue pressure on us, and the environment is just always a deterrent to doing our best. And so I think that it's really the energy around our leadership that makes us contagious or makes us detract others. And I'm very cautious before, I spend my days coaching clients over Zoom and phone calls. And so we can't see each other face to face, person to person, to read the unspoken body languages. So I have to really be up on my game, and I'm very cognizant of keeping my mind positive and not taking a negative call or not responding negatively to an email or anything like that that could bring down the level of my leadership, because I'm responsible for giving my coaching clients my best. And it really is so contagious that even though we're not in the same room, I believe that they can feel it by the phone.
I do. You're totally. No, listen, I'm just telling you, I have done training on this with salespeople that people can actually tell when you smile on the phone on the other end, even if they can't see you. They know if you're smiling. They know if you're confident. They know if you're happy. They could tell if you're sad. They could tell if you're angry. They could tell if you've had a bad day, all because of how you sit, how you look, how I tell people, you know what? Put a mirror. If you want your salespeople to improve their phone calling, put a mirror in front of them on their desk when they're calling clients. Right? And give them the instructions of what they're supposed to look like. They will change because they will put a smile on their face. They'll look at themselves. They'll smile. They'll talk. And it's a different experience. If you've never done it, I highly encourage people, you need to do it because our smiles are contagious. Our laughter is contagious. She talks about, we when people start laughing and they're laughing uncontrollably, we start laughing. And people do that when we cry. I mean, there is just something there. And maybe it is mirror neurons. I don't know. It could possibly be mirror neurons. There's a lot of discussion that the reason why our emotions could be so contagious is because our neurons start mirroring somebody else's neurons. And so it's a very possible thing. Listen, I hate to do this, but do you know that we have been on over an hour together?
Wow. Time flies when you're having fun, right, Jay?
I have so enjoyed this. So now I get to put you on the spot. Are you ready for this one? So
all right.
Here we go. So every show, I ask all my friends, because you're now a friend. You're no longer a guest. You're a friend. And I ask all my friends on a new direction. You know, we call the show a new direction because we try to help people find a new direction in their life, their career, or their business, or all of them. If Royce Gomez, author of Level Up, could leave a new direction with my listeners, what would that new direction be?
Oh, it would definitely be in your business because, again, going back to dreaming big, I know that you're capable of so much more, and I've scaled my business from almost 0 to 60 miles an hour in a short few months. And so it would be to work with you to show you results quickly.
Awesome. Her name is Royce Gomez. The book is entitled Level Up, Visioning Your Leadership DNA. We've had another great show, haven't we, folks? The show has been unbelievable, right? Because Royce helped make it unbelievable. You know what I say to you every week, right? Be inspired, because when you're inspired, that means you can inspire other people, and in turn, they can inspire others, and when we do that, this world can be an amazing place. Please join me next week. I am so grateful to all of you all over the world. CastBox, FM, Facebook, Live, Oak 93.5, and all the places around the world. You are so good to me. So please join me next week. I know you have tons of choices. I thank you so much for joining me. And as I say every week, and you know what it is, ciao, everybody.
The time has come for a new direction. When you lost your confidence and the answers don't make sense, you got to keep your hope alive. You got to know you can survive. This is your